What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down the route tree. So this is part 2 of our route tree breakdown. So last week on Monday, we covered routes 1 through 3. Now we're going to be covering routes 4 through 6 on the route tree. So we're going to be going over a curl route, a 10-yard out, and then like a 10 to 12-yard dig or in route. So I hope this video helps you guys out. Hope it could teach you a few new things. But also, fellas, if you're a wide receiver and you would like to get faster, check out that very first link in the description below where you could get access to 75 plus speed and agility drills, all designed to improve your overall athleticism. We break down each drill into categories like this: plyometrics, running mechanics. We give you the exact sets and reps to do, 40-yard dash technique, everything you need to get faster, fellas. So check out that very first link in the description below if you're interested. Let's get started with this video. So now, first route, like I said, is going to be a curl route. We're going to be looking at this curl route here from Tank Dell. So how we're going to break down this video, if you guys didn't watch the last one, it's going to be a lot of just, I'm going to go over how you run these routes versus the hardest coverage looks to face, right? So we're going to be going over a 10 to 12-yard curl versus inside shade press. And for the other routes, we're going to be going over some very awkward and difficult looks to run those routes against, because I think those are the hardest ones. So a 10 to 12-yard curl, 12 back to 10, versus inside shade press. So let's look at how Tank Dell runs this. So he gives this move, a little split release off the line, breaks this thing down, is able to come back to the ball. So honestly, I think this is more of like a head-up press coverage look, but this is how you would run it against inside shade. The only way you wouldn't run it this way would be against outside shade, okay? Outside shade is easy. If this DB was lined up outside shade, you just attack him, take the inside, and break, and you're breaking right back to the quarterback. That's easy money. But when he's inside shader, you take an outside release, guys. That's tough, because at the break point, that DB is exactly where you have to come back to the ball. So when Tank Dell comes off the ball, he gives something called a split release. Now, a split release is not the guaranteed release that you have to use for a curl route, or for any route for that matter. That's just the release he decides to use. Split release is where you bring your back foot up even with your front foot goes out, both feet make contact at the exact same time. The goal of this split release is to come to balance and read this DB. Because when this DB is lined up like in head-up press and you split, let's say the DB overcommits and jumps to the outside, because you're in a position of balance, he could just push and take the inside release. And let's say the DB sits to the inside or shades to the inside, you could push off the inside foot and take the outside release. That's the beauty of this release. Both feet hitting the ground is a balanced position. So that's why he does it, but no means does this mean you have to do this release on this curl route. It's just good release, honestly, I think, for any route. So takes this outside release. Now, this is where it gets important, right? So if you have an inside shade guy, you got to run this curl, you got to run a dig, maybe, whatever it is, you got to get that guy to flip his hips. We have to make him believe that you are running a fade. So all the way up to the break point, you have to make sure that you are running hard. You don't want to be like out of control full speed. There's a lot of information out there of guys that will say, hey, don't run full speed on your routes. Like that DB ain't going to flip his hips if you're not running hard, guys. Like you got to be like a 4.3 40-yard dash guy to be able to go 75% on your routes. And that's not realistic for a lot of high school and younger wide receivers. You got to attack the depth of your route. I think if your change of direction is on point, and that's what we're going to be talking about, you will be able to run full speed. Now, it's a controlled full speed. I'm not saying be out of control and have terrible form, and you obviously can't think about your form, but it's a controlled full speed, and we have to get that guy to open up his hips to the fade. Now, it's more than just running full speed. It's also about running in full stride. We don't want to run and then right before this break point start to take like these choppy steps where we're preparing for the break point. Because when you prepare for the break point, you're letting that DB know a break's coming. And that's very bad on a curl route versus inside shade press coverage, because we need separation. So it's all about your stride, your speed, and then your body language tops it off. You want to make sure that your hips and your shoulders have like a slight forward lean. And that slight forward lean is what helps you maintain that speed, and it makes it look like a fade. Because if you're running a fade, you're not going to be running up tall. You're not going to raise up with your chest, with your chin, pop up right before you drop your hips like so many wide receivers do. And that gives away the route, guys. Because at the break point, curl route versus inside shade, you got to be able to sit on down on a dime, because we can't give this DB time to react. If we have a slow hip drop, if we start chopping my feet, if I start to slow down, that DB slows down, and you're running that curl right into him. So your break at the top is what gets you separation in this case. You got to be violent, and it has to be on a dime. So what do I mean by that? I mean, like when you guys drop into the break, a phrase that I tell a lot of my wide receivers is you want to try to bring your chest to your quads. So you do not want to be sitting straight up with your chest in the air because that's going to cause you to lean back, might cause a drift at the break, extra steps, and that's more time for the DB to react. You also don't want your chest to go past your knees. You don't want to be falling forward because that causes a drift, and that gives the DB time to just sit, and you run that curl right into him. I got to bring my chest to my quads. I got to sit down. You want to sit your butt down like you're sitting in a chair. I tell my wide receivers as well, like you're playing musical chairs. The music stops, you sit down as fast as you can. You bring your chest to your quads so you're in an explosive body language position and you could drive back, be able to stop on a dime and get separation. Because that's the only way to run that curl versus inside shade press. You're not going to stack him. You're going to have him right on that hip and we have to be able to slip under. And you not giving away the route is how we do that, fellas. So I'm going to play this again full speed one more time. Great example here from Tank Dell using a split release, outside release on inside shade press, running that curl route. So now the next route we're going to be looking at, fellas, is going to be a 10-yard out versus outside shade press. Now this is a common look a lot of guys struggle with because, especially in like one-on-ones, right? Like I know you guys have all probably been to camps. You guys have worked one-on-ones at practice and your quarterback will call it, your receiver coach, you might call it, and you'll say, hey, I'm going to go run a 10-yard out. And when you run a 10-yard out, you line up and you cut your split down. Now, this is what actually happens in a real game too, fellas. You see how Garrett Wilson has his split cut down. This is his right tackle. And this DB is not an idiot. He knows that when a wide receiver cuts his split down, he's cutting his split down probably to run an outside breaking route or a drag. So if this DB is lucky enough to have help to the inside, he's going to be playing outside leverage the entire time. So if I have to run an out route, my game plan can't be, I'm going to give him a fake in and then take an outside release. That DB's not going to give up the outside. So you have to be comfortable taking an inside release versus this outside shade press look on any outside breaking route, out route, a corner, whatever the situation we are working is. So let's play this full speed. Let's watch what he does. So he attacks this DB, takes the inside release, bam, puts the brakes on, slips under, and wins on that out route. And that's textbook right there because, again, the best way to get a DB to move in press, threaten him where he doesn't want us to go. He's outside leverage because he's not going to give up the outside. So let's make him think we're running a fade. Let's try to get him to widen. Let's get him to move off that platform. If we just took the outside release here and broke, this DB would be right on my hip, honest. And, honestly, I think Garrett Wilson's talented enough. He probably could have forced it here. But we can't rely on that, fellas. Sometimes you got DBs who are very disciplined and who are not going to open up like this. But he attacks to the outside, again, gets that DB to move off that platform, takes the inside release. Because now when he takes the inside release, he doesn't sacrifice any room for the quarterback to throw us open or to lead us, right? So he takes this inside release. Now, obviously on an out route, because an out route's usually a route where you cut off of 1 foot, I would love to stack the DB. And that should be your goal. But sometimes I'm not going to be able to stack the DB. Sometimes he might be faster than me. Sometimes he might play it well. And I'm going to be running hip to hip with him. So I have to get comfortable putting the brakes on. Very similar to the curl route. Hey, chest to quad, like we said. Sitting your butt down like you're playing musical chairs. And then being able to slip underneath and win on this route. And give the quarterback room. So, fellas, if you got that outside shade press look and you have to run a 10-yard out, take the inside release. Take what he gives us. Our goal should be to stack, or our goal needs to be putting the brakes on and slipping underneath him. Again, it's about a reaction, fellas. Now, there might be times where you might try to attack the DB outside and then he starts to just back up. Okay, freaking take the outside release then. But if he keeps that leverage, take the inside. I think Garrett Wilson could have gotten away with taking the outside release here. This is still a good example of that pre-snap outside shade look. Let's play this again full speed one more time. Great job by Wilson attacking and then slipping underneath to give the quarterback room. Okay, so now, next route here, this is going to be a clip from Travis Hunter at Colorado's, I want to say spring football. I think this was a clip from their spring football. It makes sense because they're in pads. And it's going to be a 10 to 12-yard dig versus inside shade press. So now, I honestly, when it comes down to the route tree, fellas, and that's what this whole video is about, right? That's what this whole series is about. How would you run different routes on the route tree versus the hardest coverage looks? Honestly, I would separate your routes by inside breaking and outside breaking when it gets past a certain point, like when it gets past 5 yards. And you're honestly going to probably run any inside breaking route the exact same way versus press. Versus off man, it gets a little bit different. But versus press, it's usually the same idea. So let's watch what Travis Hunter does here. Inside shade press, and he's got to run a dig. Do you guys think he's going to get the inside release here? Probably not. This DB's probably going to be disciplined and not give up the inside. If we force an inside release versus inside shade press, DB's going to get hands for sure if we try to force it. And him getting hands is his goal. His goal is to get hands to disrupt timing. And if we force an inside release, if we get rerouted way inside and you run this dig and you're ending up on like the opposite hash, guys, that's not a real route. It might work in one-on-ones because nobody's on the field. But imagine if Travis Hunter had to run a dig and his slot receiver was also running a dig. But he got rerouted and he broke and he's right next to this guy. One defender could cover 2 routes. We can't have that. So he takes the outside release. So let's play this full speed. So he attacks him, pushes up vertical. He's able to stack the DB, get over the top. And again, you see how much room he's given the quarterback, guys. And again, he could have thrown by, right? He attacks him. Best way to get a DB to move. Attack him where he doesn't want you to go. Takes this outside release. Again, you see how he's just a lot faster than this DB, and he's able to get over the top of him and break. Would I like to see him, like if I was coaching him up, I'd probably say like at this point, you should try to stay a little tighter so it's a cleaner restack point. He takes it a little wide right here, leaving a gap of space. You guys should try to avoid this at all costs because sometimes you might not have the speed of Travis Hunter to get over the top of the DB. But again, you see what ends up happening. He's able to stack over him, and look at all this room he has now. He didn't force it. He didn't force the inside release. He took what the DB gave him and was still able to get separation. So fellas, break your routes up into inside breaking and outside breaking. When it gets past 5 yards, it's all about if it's inside breaking or if it's outside breaking. You're probably going to try to run it the same way. Who's to say, like let's say Travis Hunter attacks inside and then the DB overcommits and jumps to the outside when he takes this outside release. Hunter could easily just put the brakes on and slip under. But again, it's about reacting, but it's also about having a plan when it comes down to your route. So let's play this again, full speed one more time. Great job by Hunter attacking inside, working over the top, and then winning on this dig route. All right, fellas, really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. Always appreciate the feedback. It's always great to hear from you guys. And again, fellas, if you would like to get faster and want 75 plus speed and agility drills to do, check out that very first link in the description below. We give you the exact sets and reps to do, and we break down everything for you guys into categories so the info is easy to retain. So check out that very first link in the description below. I'll see you guys next time.